Sitting in the corner of my living room is a glass cabinet that contains a selection of toys and knickknacks that have some special meaning to me. I call this my nostalgia cabinet, and I thought now would be a nicer time as any to share it with you, so hopefully it'll come as a bit of a welcome distraction. "22 years ago, as a fresh-faced youngster, I moved out of my parental home and shacked up with my then-girlfriend in a small studio flat that was nothing more than a glorified cupboard with a shelf above the main living area for a bedroom. Of course we had no room to store anything, and so I boxed up all my belongings and put them into storage. And there it all stayed as we moved around the country from one flat to another, while time marched on over the next 2 decades. Despite this, I carried on collecting, and so it's grown substantially in that time, but I've never actually seen any of it all together because for each new purchase or gift that I was given, I'd immediately consign it to a perpetual entombment in a box, a darkened cupboard, or the cold confines of the garage, seemingly never to be seen again. Yes, I know, this is kind of pointless, so why do I do it then, you may ask? Well, clearly I just can't help myself, I'm a moron, obviously. In the summer of 2019, when we bought our first house, my wife suggested that now may be as good a time as any to unpack some of my stuff and actually start to enjoy it. Also, for some reason we ended up with a spare glass cabinet, which for now we could make use of until we get ourselves better organised. So let me walk you through that display. The top 2 shelves are my absolute favourites and represent my early childhood and the many memories of loved ones that I have, so the items there have a lot of sentimental value attached to them. The 3 remaining shelves still have meaning, but for entirely different reasons. Taking pride of place at the head of the unit is my Dennis Fisher Tardis, complete with box. My parents gave this to me for Christmas in 1978. I remember being so giddy with excitement when I received this, I just couldn't believe that I really had this in my possession, and I played with it all the time. In fact, I don't think I ever went anywhere without it. However, let me just say this. For all those years in storage, it was in near mint condition until about 2 weeks after placing it into this cabinet. One day from next door there was an almighty crash that shook our house with such a violent thud that it actually felt like there was a momentary earthquake. Christ only knows what they were doing back there, but the net result here was that the right hand door and the lamp sheared right off, which bitterly annoys me. So that's a repair video waiting to happen right there, which is why for now I have it displayed back to front. Anyway, despite all that, I just love everything about this toy, from the naive simplicity of the flat cardboard walls with the printed on detailing to the fantastically 1970s style box artwork. But above all, it was my first ever TARDIS and the only one that I owned for many, many years. Moving on down to the next shelf then. First up is my Dennis Fisher 4th Doctor doll, a replacement that I obtained when eBay was in its infancy to replace the one that I'd received on Christmas in 1978 along with that TARDIS. This example is missing its hat and sonic screwdriver, but I'm sure I'll remedy that in due course. Unfortunately, on opening it up that fateful morning, I was met with a pile of broken limbs and disintegrated plastic, so the gift was sent back to Father Christmas. To my utter dismay, however, he didn't have any more in stock, so I was sent a Beano Annual by way of a replacement. Now, I don't know about you, but to me this wasn't quite the same really, and I always felt rather miffed that my time machine was less a pilot. Oh well, c'est la vie and all that. Standing opposite is a talking 4th Doctor doll along with his robotic sidekick K9, this time by Product Enterprise. I got this in the late 1990s to early 2000s as a sort of pseudo stand-in for the Dennis Fisher toy that at the time I no longer had. Back then I was desperate to recreate some of my missing childhood toys, and this was as close as I was ever going to get to achieving that, and you'll see more acquisitions like this as we progress. This dead-eyed ugly looking freak by Funko Pop was bought for me by my kids as a Father's Day gift a number of years ago, when the gift they really wanted to get for me seemed to be totally unavailable the world over. Whilst I really dislike this kind of unimaginative, dreary and obnoxious tat, the fact that it's from my kids and that it's a representation of my favourite Doctor, I'm sure you're starting to notice a pattern here, makes it a worthy addition to my collection, and I wouldn't part with it for the world. Moving swiftly on though. Now this is what my kids were really after, especially after I dropped many hints that I wanted one. I don't know why I wanted this, because as a youngster I absolutely loathed Playmobil stuff, but perhaps by enlarging the scale to about twice the size and making it a 4th Doctor, it just ticked all the boxes for me, and as a result I absolutely love this little guy. At least my kids, with a bit of help from their mother, got him in the end, and so I'm really pleased to have it. I mean, I truly am, just look at his cute little face. This box of Doctor Who Candy Favourites by Goodies is a real gem and a star piece of my collection because it's the sort of consumable item where back in the day you'd eat all the terrible chocolates within and then throw away the packaging, and that's precisely what I did on Christmas Day in 1979. As a result, it's a rare find and I'm totally indebted to my mother for recently re-gifting this little treasure to me. Just like the Dennis Fisher TARDIS packaging, I utterly adore the retro hand-painted artwork depicting a Dalek, a Cyberman, K9 and the TARDIS that serve to represent the shaped chocolates inside. On the reverse is a game that you can cut out and play with your family and is probably the sole reason why so few of these survive intact today. In fact, that's exactly what happened to mine before it was so casually thrown away, and I do regret doing that because for decades thereafter I wished that I'd just kept it all in one piece. But hey, I was only 4 years old at that point and I desperately wanted to play a Doctor Who game with my mum and dad after our hearty Christmas meal that year. Still, I've got it back now, so it's all good and the sentimentality runs rife. Here are 3 relatively recent reacquisitions of the Palitoy talking Dalek toys that I once owned as a child. By the mid-1980s, between me and my brother, we'd amassed about 14 of these in the 3 available colour schemes: silver and blue, silver and black, and of course, red and black. All were in varying states of repair by that point. In fact, the sole reason why I lost them back then was down to the fact that I had dismantled them for refurbishment, and being a bit lazy, I'd left them out and my dad thought they were broken, so he threw them away. By the time that I realised what had happened, the rubbish had been collected and they were gone forever. I was gutted, but it taught me a valuable lesson: to put things away when you're done with them. The silver one I restored with new, slightly inaccurate replica appendages, and I also got the voice box working again with minimal effort. While the red one here came complete with its original appendages and it was in good working order. Ironically, the seller of this one used my restoration video to get it talking again in readiness for his sale. Not that he knew that I was the chap buying it from him, but it gives me a laugh regardless. The faded orange one in the middle here was bought for me as a joke by my wife because she thought that it was beyond repair. But I rather like it in its current state, so I'll probably just give it some new arms and an eye and leave it at that. I have so many fond memories of playing with these guys as a child that I'm totally elated to have them finally back in my possession, especially as I always think of my late father when I look at them, given the fact that it was him that threw them away in the first place. The remaining shelves are more generalised, not specifically related to any childhood nostalgia, but they do have meaning in one regard or another. Take for example shelf number 3. Along the back are a selection of toys from Product Enterprise, bought at a time when Doctor Who was off the air and quality merchandise like these were few and far between, so I had to be very selective to maintain the quality of goods that I was after. These were a mixture of Christmas and birthday gifts from my parents, and just like the talking 4th Doctor figure, the 2 Daleks here were bought for a reason. They were a close approximation for the Palitoy Daleks that at the time I no longer had, hence the colour scheme choice that you see here. Lined up in front of them are a sort of chronology timeline of Tom Baker as the Doctor, from his first appearance in Robot, all the way up to his last appearance in the 50th anniversary story Day of the Doctor. I included these just because it's Tom Baker. The K1 robot tucked in the corner there is also present simply because that is utter coolness on a stick, and you don't need any other reason than that alone. Davros on the other hand, however, and his Dalek minions are placed in the centre partly as a space filler, but also because I had a hand in the design, specifically all the Davroses spanning from both the classic series and the new line. This particular one is here because it's the one that I like the most, and I really didn't want to try and cram all the others in because, as you can clearly see, there just isn't the space. Down to the penultimate shelf then, and we're greeted with a selection of TARDISes as piloted by the 4th Doctor. Now, I'm fully well aware that the N2 are marketed as later Doctor TARDISes, but technically, Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor used these in his final season, and as the designer of all these toys, I say it's a legitimate statement to make. And that's my Palitoy talking K9 there that my late grandmother gave to me in 1980. Unfortunately, I gutted its internals when I was about 10 years old, and I'm hoping that they're somewhere in my parents' attic, because one day I do hope to recover them again and put it all back together. Lastly for this shelf, here's my Dapple reissue of the Bump and Go Mark's Dalek toy, given to me by the late John Nathan Turner as a sort of thank you when I worked for him on the Doctor Who exhibition in the early 1990s. Now, I'm not a massive fan of these, but I like them enough as I'm convinced that they were the design inspiration for the Palitoy version that came out about a decade later. Check it out for yourself and you'll see what I mean. Fact fans may also be interested to know that the reproduction Palitoy Dalek appendages that I mentioned earlier that you can buy on eBay are actually castings from these appendages and not the actual Palitoy versions. While slightly too small in proportion for the Palatoy Daleks, they're still a decent stand-in for now if your Dalek doesn't have any, and in the future I may do a run of the correct versions, but we'll see about that. And lastly we come to the Tardis Shelf. Now this isn't all I own, it's just what I could lay my hands on to fill the space. There's not terribly much that I can say about all these other than there's a variety of vintages on display here, including a 1950s dinky police box, various items from the 1970s and 1980s, including a tin that I got from Madame Tussauds exhibition around 1980, and a whole swathe of new series variations that I find particularly uninteresting, mainly because they all pretty much look alike. Nevertheless, I reckon it's a fair representation of TARDIS merchandise throughout the years. And that brings me to the end of this mini tour. In the future, I'd like to do some more videos like this, focus on selected items that I own. If you're interested in that kind of content, then please do let me know down in the comments section below. So until next time, thanks very much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.